DreAllDay.com.
Sound check 1 2. You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves me, you, and everybody else out there to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together in one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, and one show that comes out every single day. One masterclass you're getting every single day. And it's called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic: the labor or the fruit? That is the question. This subject is about asking yourself the question. It's a rhetorical question from me to you, but it is not a rhetorical question from you to you. So I don't know what we call it, a question that is not the one that doesn't need an answer, which is rhetorical. The one that actually needs an answer, a direct question. What are you more interested in? The work that produces the trappings of success, or the work itself? This question that we're talking about here today, I'm not talking about just in everything in life. This is not a question that you're going to blanket over everything you could possibly do. So this question is about what you're going to choose to do with your life, the thing that you choose to dedicate your life to. Whatever you're doing for work, whatever business you decide to start, whatever career you decide to get into. That's what we're talking about here. So I'm not talking like at your home, for example. You may enjoy let me back up. You may not enjoy cleaning the bathrooms at your home, but you do enjoy having clean bathrooms at your home. All right, that's the difference between the work and the labor. I'm not talking about that. All right, you don't have to love cleaning your bathrooms, but you do love the results of it. I'm talking about with your actual work. If you're an athlete, for example, you may enjoy the fact that you get followers on social media because you're an athlete. Or you may enjoy the free sneakers or the sweatsuits or the team camaraderie or having all the fans come to the game to watch you perform. You may enjoy all that. All those are the trappings of your work. But do you enjoy the actual work, like showing up every day and coming to practice, or doing all the training that you need to do in the off season, or getting in the ice tub, or doing the stretching, or doing the foam rolling, or everything that you have to do to get yourself ready to perform in your sport? All the things that lead to those trappings of success, are you as excited, or are you as invested in those things that lead to the trappings as you are in the trappings themselves? And what's the balance between the two of them? What's the percentage, the ratios between how much you care about, one, the work that you're doing, and two, the labor, the results that come from the labor that you're doing? That's the question that we're asking and answering here today. You're going to answer it. I'm going to provide the asking. This is something that, with a platform such as social media, this is something that we see a lot of these days, is people showing you the trappings of their work or their alleged work, right? They're showing you all the things that come from the effort that they want you to believe that they put in. Well, look at this success that I created. Let me tell you how much money that I just made. Let me tell you how many customers I have. Let me show you the material possessions that I've achieved. Let me show you the body that I have earned in the gym, allegedly. People want to show you all the things that they have gotten as a result of the effort that they want you to believe that they put in. But are we quite sure? Well, we don't know you never really know. You know, as the saying goes, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear when it comes to what other people are telling you or other people are presenting to you, especially if they're putting it out there in front of your face over and over and over again. There may be a reason why they're so adamant about putting it in front of your face, and it may not be because they've actually done the work to earn it. But that's a whole different conversation for a different day, maybe for even a different show. We'll see. But what you need to ask yourself is, what's the more important thing? Is it showing the outward signs of what's been achieved or what's been acquired? Or is it actually doing the things that are going to produce those results? As I heard an entrepreneur, I can't remember who it was that said this just recently. He said, if you think of people who are really out there doing their thing, this is a guy who was talking about business and marketing and sales. He said the people who are really doing their thing in business and marketing and sales, the majority of them, you can't find them on Instagram. The majority of them, you don't find them showing you or giving you the motivational tips on their social media platforms, simply because they don't have the resources to give to social media. They're just focused on running their business. They're focused on doing their thing. They're actually out there doing the work. So they're not on the platforms telling you about all the things that have resulted from their work. Now, are there some exceptions to that? Of course, there's some people who use it more than others, but the general idea of it is what I want you to understand. A lot of people like showing off the outward signs of what they've achieved, but not everyone who's showing the outward signs of achievement has actually done the work. And today you're going to learn and you're going to assess also which one you are, because this is not really about what some other people are doing on social media or what some other people are doing or not doing out there in life, period. It's about what you're doing or not doing and how to adjust if necessary based on what we're going to touch on here today. So let's get into our points. Point number one, the topic once again today is the labor or the fruit. Which one are you more interested in? Point number one, you must be in love with the work. Whatever you decide to dedicate your life, your career, your business to, you got to be in love with the work that is required in that thing. So maybe you want to be a platinum selling musical recording artist. Maybe you want to be a professional athlete. Maybe you want to be a New York Times best-selling author. Maybe you want to be a business owner who has 1,000 franchisees all across the world. Whatever it is you want to do, you must be in love with the work that is required to produce that result, because the result itself, of course, that's what you want to achieve. But there's going to be a whole lot of work in between where you are now and achieving that actual result. Some people have said, I've heard this from in multiple places, that you don't have to love the work of whatever it is you're doing, whatever you're going to get into. All you just got to want bad enough is the results. You got to love the results enough, then you'll be motivated enough to fight through the work and push yourself through the work with a disciplined mindset, simply because you're so interested in achieving that outcome. But I don't agree with that. I do not agree with this mindset that you can make it to your outcome without falling in love with the process. That you can make it to achieving the fruits of your labor without falling in love with the labor. I believe that if you love the apples that come off of the tree, you got to fall in love with the trees in order to get those apples. You need to enjoy doing the work, or find some reason to enjoy it. Maybe it's not the work itself you enjoy, but you enjoy knowing that you're doing it, which puts you ahead of your competition. You enjoy knowing that when you're putting this work in, you're creating a little bit of a separation day between you and your opponents. There's something about that work, or all of the work, that you need to find some enjoyment in. And here's a simple reason why. Because you probably do not and will not have a foolproof plan. Now, why does that matter that you don't have a foolproof plan to achieve your outcome, that is? Because doing all the work is not always going to produce results. So if we back up to what I said a few minutes ago, understand this. Even if, let's say you followed the advice of someone who says you don't have to love the work. All you got to do is love the result and you'll be able to do the work. Let's say we followed that advice. You don't love the work, but you do love the outcome. So you have the outcome in your mind, what you want to achieve, right? So then you start doing the work, you have a plan in place, and you start doing the work, and you think after you do X amount of work, you're going to have achieved the result. And you don't even love the work, right? But after you do that X amount of work, here's what's going to happen. You didn't achieve the result. And let me tell you why after doing X amount of work, you will not achieve the result. Because you are a human being. Because you are not you probably are not going to shoot 1,000 when it comes to your plans. Meaning, every plan that you make and every strategy that you put together is probably not going to be 100% foolproof. It's not going to be perfect. It is not going to produce the exact result that you plan for it to produce the first time that you go through it. You probably will need to make adjustments. You'll probably face a setback. You'll probably have to go back to the drawing board and try again and adjust and do it this way and do things that way. That's what you're going to have to do when you're a human being making plans to achieve an outcome, which means that work that you don't love, that you said, I'll just grip my way through this work just to get to the outcome, just to get to the other side of the tunnel. Any of you ever saw the movie Shawshank Redemption? Or you remember when the guy escaped from the prison at the end and he crawled through the sewage tunnel, crawled through all the shit and the piss that was coming through the pipes just to get out on the other side, because he knew exactly how far he was going to have to crawl through those pipes in order to get out and become free. But what if he crawled through all of that sewage, all of that shit and piss and vomit and whatever else was in those pipes, and once he got to the end, he realized that that wasn't the right place he needed to end up at. He realized that his plan wasn't right, that he had made a wrong turn. He was going to have to do something different. What if that happened? And he would have had to go back and do it all over again, not sure if his next plan was even going to work. He was just going to have to keep trying and keep crawling through pipes full of shit and piss in order to get to the outcome. Maybe he would have had to fall in love with crawling through those pipes. Now, maybe he didn't love it that one time because he had an idea, because it was a movie. He had an idea that it was going to produce a certain outcome after a certain amount of time. But your plans, your life, you probably don't have a guaranteed plan. And if you have a guaranteed plan that is 100% guaranteed to work, you're probably reaching an outcome that is not that valuable. Because any plan is guaranteed to work, then anybody could do it. And what value is there in something that anybody could have achieved? Probably not much, or that anybody is achieving. Because if the plan is guaranteed, and I guarantee you there's a whole bunch of other people already doing it. Thus, the value has gone down. Doing the work will not always produce the results. That's why you got to fall in love with doing the work. Because if you grit through something, knowing that there's an end game to it, what if you grit through it and then the end game doesn't happen? Now what? Are you going to grit through it again and again and again, knowing that gritting through it there's nothing on the other side of that? There's no gold at the end of the rainbow? Are you going to keep doing that? Probably not. How do I know that? How can I say probably not? Because you're human. I can grit through anything if I know exactly what I'm getting after is over. I'm good with that. I'm good with getting in the shower and turning on the cold water when I first get in the shower, letting that cold water hit me and the discomfort of that cold water for somewhere between 15 and 30 seconds. I'm good with that. You know why I'm good with that? Because I know I control the heat knob on that shower, and I can turn on hot water anytime that I want to. I know after a certain amount of time, I can turn it on hot, then I'll be good. Now, if I don't know how long I got to deal with that cold water, then I might not be so fond of doing it. I might not be so fond of that practice of letting the cold water hit me. You understand? Knowing that there's an end game to it, anybody could grit through anything. Well, anybody could. Yes, could is correct. Now, would anybody do it? And some people wouldn't even do that, even if they knew it would be over at a certain amount of time. I think you, listening to this show, you probably do it. You could get through it knowing that there's an end to it. But what if you didn't know if there was an end? Or what if you didn't know if the end that you got to was actually the end that you wanted? Would you still keep doing it over and over and over again? Eventually, you would either A, have to fall in love with going through it, knowing that it may not produce the result this time, or B, you would stop going through it because you're like, all right, I'm not sure this is even going to work out. So since doing the work will not always produce results, that means doing the work, you'll have to do the work again. And then you had to do the work again. And then you had to do it again and again until you hit on whatever the proper formula is. And even then, once you hit on the proper formula, the world that we're in now, as quickly as things are changing, the proper formula may not be the proper formula next week as it is this week. It may not work next year the same way as working this year. And if all you love is the result, then it's pretty hard to keep working on that thing and finding different formulas when there's no result on the horizon. Because again, you don't know if the result's going to actually happen. You're coming into an unknown. Maybe you have a hypothesis of what's going to happen, but it's not guaranteed that it's going to happen. I spend hours coming up with topics for these master classes that you listen to here all the time, fleshing them out, coming up with the points, coming up with a story that makes sense here, riffing on a lot of what I say you hear on the show. I would say that 80% of it is riffing. 20% of it is notes. The other 80% is just stuff that comes to me as I start talking about certain topics. The fun part of all of this is when you hear it and then I get the reviews and the feedback, et cetera. Those are the fruits of the labor. All right. At this exact moment, you're not here at this exact moment. Right now, you're listening to it, but it's already been recorded. But the exact moment right now, I mean today, as I'm actually recording this audio, all right, this is the work. The work is what separates me from anybody else who wants to listen, how many people out there, some of you listening right now, you would love to get a bunch of reviews and feedback and testimonial and have an audience and have a tribe and have customers and have clients and have people buying your stuff. There's a whole bunch of people out there who want that. Okay. Wanting the fruits of the labor is not unique. All right, there's nothing unique about me enjoying the fact that there are people who will write me emails and send me DMs and buy my books and sign up for my courses or want me to coach them or consult with them or give me a 5-star rating and review on the Apple Podcast app, which if you haven't done yet, you should do. There's nothing about me wanting that is unique because there are a million people out there creating content, some of it good, some of it not, some of it mediocre, that want that. Okay, so if I was to go tell everybody about all my positive reviews and feedbacks and testimonials, I mean, there's a bunch of people who could do that. There's a bunch of people who want to do it. What separates me from all those other bunch of people is the fact that I'm doing the work. The fact that I've done the work probably more than 99.9% of the people you can name. Probably 100% of them. I mean, nobody's created more content than me. That's just a fact. The work is what separates me. When I started putting content on YouTube back in the day, that's all I was doing. I was just doing the work every day. It just happened to be on camera. All right, the best performers are usually the best preparers. Let me say that one more time. That's a quotable. The best performers are usually the best preparers. These are the people who take the most pride in the time that they spend preparing for the opportunity to produce results. Not just producing the results, but preparing for the opportunity to produce results. I was actually just listening today, and this is definitely not in my notes. It's right before I started recording. I was listening to an episode of the Bill Simmons podcast. If you don't know who Bill is, he's known as the sports guy. That's his actual moniker, the sports guy. He's a guy from Boston, and he had Kevin Garnett, NBA legend, on his podcast. I don't think Garnett's in the Hall of Fame yet, simply because he's not yet eligible, because you got to let a few years pass, but he's guaranteed to be in the Hall of Fame. He had Kevin Garnett on the show, and Garnett told this story of how his rookie year in the NBA, his team was playing against the Chicago Bulls. At the time, Kevin Garnett was playing for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they played against the Bulls. And after the game, Kevin Garnett, they had beat the Bulls, which was really surprising because the Bulls were a really, really great team, and Garnett's team was not that good. And Kevin Garnett went into the weight room in Chicago after the game, and he was going to get a little bit of a lift in, or he was just going to do a light something. And he saw Dennis Rodman, who was playing for the Bulls, in the weight room. And he walks up to Rodman, and Rodman hadn't even played in that game. Rodman had, I believe he had been suspended or something at that point. He had missed the game, according to KG's story, if I'm getting it right. And Dennis Rodman got on the treadmill, and he put the treadmill all the way up. Those of you who've been on the treadmill before, you know how you can put it on the incline? Dennis Rodman turned the incline all the way up. He said he had it on, according to Kevin Garnett's story, Dennis Rodman had this thing on like a 12 or 15% incline, and he was sprinting on the treadmill with construction boots on. You can rewind and listen to what I just said. Sprinting on the treadmill on the full incline with construction boots on. And Kevin Garnett walked over. He was watching Rodman for a while, and he eventually walked over to Rodman just to, ask him what the hell he was doing. And Dennis Rodman said, well, first of all, Dennis Rodman started talking to KG and said, hey, good game, young fella. You're doing your thing. You're good. And mind you, KG is explaining the story that Dennis Rodman was talking to him while he was running on the treadmill on the full incline, sprinting with boots on. He was talking to Kevin Garnett. And KG asked him, why are you out here running on the treadmill after a game? He said, look, this is one of the things that you got to do. He said, first of all, I know the guy I'm playing against tomorrow night, he's one of the best rebounders in the league. And Dennis Rodman was known as a great rebounder. I'm going to out-rebound that kid tomorrow night. So he was already preparing mentally and now, as you can see, physically on the treadmill for that game the next night. And then Rodman started explaining to Kevin Garnett, young Kevin Garnett, why you need to lift weights even after a game, because it keeps you and gets you in better shape for the next game. With an NBA season being a marathon of 82 games, with another game coming the next night, lifting weights will actually help you for the game the next day. Though most people think that doing nothing, resting, is the best way to get your energy back up for the next day. No, it's actually doing something gets you in better shape for doing something the next day, which I've explained in different episodes, but we'll go into that at different times. But this is just something that I heard today, literally today, the day that I'm recording this, Dennis Rodman talking about preparing for the next game. This is something that none of us would have known had I not heard Kevin Garnett tell that. That's one of those things that, again, that's something that didn't pop up on social media. This was in the 90s when this happened. But the best performers, Dennis Rodman was a great performer. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a legend in the game. Kevin Garnett is also, are the people who are best at preparing. And Kevin Garnett said after that night, he realized that he needed to do more preparation. He realized, he looked at Dennis Rodman. He said, this guy has all these championship rings. This guy is known as one of the best defenders, best rebounders, best in shape, best players in the game, in the history of the game of basketball. I need to start doing what he's doing. I'm not going to play the way Dennis Rodman plays. They had different skill sets, but this guy's preparing. All right, that's probably one of the reasons why Kevin Garnett inferred. It's probably one of the reasons why he's one of the best players, is that he prepares the most. Not because he's talented. Yes, he is talented, but that's not the reason why he's one of the best, because everybody in the NBA is talented. It's the fact that he prepares more than everybody else. Point number 2. Today's topic is the labor or the fruit. That is the question. Which one are you more interested in? Here's the question for you. Another one. Where in your life, because you got to figure this thing out, that what you're more interested in, the labor or the fruit, right? Where in your life are you willing to do the work every single day? This is a question, and this is damn sure not a rhetorical question. Let me ask the question one more time, and I want you to think about this, and you need to have an answer for this. And I want you to understand that your answer to this question may not be the thing that you've been doing up to this point in your life. Where in your life are you willing to do the work every single day? There's a guy by the name of Stephen A. Smith, who many of you have probably heard of. If you follow sports at all, if you watch ESPN at all, you know who Stephen A. Smith is. Stephen A. Smith is an analyst on ESPN. He's done a lot of things on ESPN. He's done play-by-play. He's done post-game. He's done, I don't know if he's done any sideline reporting. Stephen A. Smith has been a journalist, a columnist who's written for several newspapers. He actually he played basketball in college, he said. This is way back. Stephen A. Smith's a little bit older, probably a generation or two older than me. But Stephen A. Smith at this point today is probably the highest paid guy on ESPN, period. Of everybody who works at ESPN, Stephen A. Smith is number one, the top guy on the totem pole in terms of on-air talent. He is number one. Stephen A. Smith has told the story. I've heard him in interviews talk about how he lived after getting out of college. Actually, let me back up. Any of you who is a writer or wants to work in journalism, or maybe some of you who are, let's say, my age, in your late 30s or older, who works in journalism or does any type of writing, you may understand the life that Stephen A. Smith lived when he got out of college and he wanted to get into writing for a living, because that's what he wanted to do. This is before the internet. These days, if you want to be a writer, you can just get on the internet, you start your own blog, maybe you can submit your stuff through email to some publications, and maybe you can get yourself on that way. But Stephen A. Smith, there was no internet back then. So back then, if you wanted to be a writer, you had to submit your resume, you had to go to job interviews, you had to get hired somewhere, which would probably be some small, middle of nowhere or very small town outpost. You had to find a way to live in that place on a little bit of money that you were making, and you had to do what you had to do to build up your resume, and hopefully you were good enough to get a future opportunity after that. Stephen A. Smith said, and I've heard many journalists who now, many of them have migrated to television and internet these days, but back then, I'm talking late 90s, the first decade of the 2000s, these people were writing. They were writing on newspapers, then which eventually became the internet. Now we got podcasts and video, because those are the things that people are watching. So these people don't write as much as they used to. A guy like Stephen A. Smith, a guy like Bill Simmons, a guy like Jason Whitlock, who works for Fox. These guys were all great writers. I used to read all of their stuff back in the early days of the internet. Nowadays, all of them are doing TV, video, podcast stuff, and they don't write at all. Actually, the three of those guys hardly write anything at all, because that's just the way things have migrated. But anyway, I digress from my point. Stephen A. Smith talked about this. Bill Simmons has said it. Jason Whitlock has said it. Anybody who else has been in the writing industry has said this, at least if you came up in those times. That Stephen A. Smith said he lived in studio apartments. He drank no Kool-Aid. He ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner. He ate ramen noodles as meals 3 times a day for years, not months, not a week, for years, while building his resume as a journalist. Because every time you put a column out and it ran and it was actually good content, that's something that you added to your resume. It adds to your track record. That's something else that you can show to your next possible employer as proof that you're actually good. All right, this is what you had to do back in those times when you couldn't just do it from your computer desk on the internet. You had to actually physically be in places doing the work. Now, as I said, Stephen A. Smith is, I'm pretty sure, the highest paid on-air talent that works at ESPN. Eric Thomas, also known as E.T., the hip hop preacher, the motivational speaker, I guess we can call him. I know he's a lot of other things, but that's what a lot of people know him as. If you know who he is, you know who he is. If you don't, you can Google him. But Eric Thomas, I did a video with this guy back in 2010. And this was about a year or so after he had first blown up on the internet, because he had this video where he was speaking at what looked like to be a high school or middle school. And he was telling this story, and he uttered the phrase that has become damn near connected to his name as, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, you're going to become successful. So everyone who knows who Eric Thomas is knows about that video. And I did a video with him again, 2010. So this was the early years of him, blowing up and starting to become more famous. He was down in Miami. We did a video at the Miami Dolphins practice facility. And while I was setting up the camera, I remember this, I'm setting up the camera outside of the facility as we were going to record a video. The video was only about 5-10 minutes long. And I said to him, first thing I said to him was, hey, ET, you know I do these in one take, right? He was like, oh, no problem. We did knock that out in one take. And then I was just asking him, you know, I first heard about you when that video came out, when you were speaking at the school, and you said that when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe. I said, did you just now begin doing this, motivational speaking thing? Are you brand new to this? And he said, no. And he actually told this story once we turned the camera on, but he told me before we turned the camera on. He said, Dre, I've been speaking since 1992. It was 2010. Now I'm telling you that for you to understand. Eric Thomas blew up around 2008, 2009. We did the video in 2010. He had been speaking since 1992. He'd been speaking for 17 years before he got famous. Longer than some of you been alive. People tell me whenever I do a speaking engagement, or maybe people who listen to this podcast, or usually one of those two, people tell me, you're a good speaker. You're good at articulating your points. You're polished. I like the way that you say things. And they ask me, have you done any formal training, or how'd you get good at it? Or they just give it to me as a compliment. And I appreciate the compliment. I accept the compliment. I do think I'm pretty good at what I'm doing, but I became good after 10,000 hours of recording content, 7,000 articles of writing. I should be good at it. Doing a podcast or show like this every single day, going on 4 years. I should be good at writing. I should be good at speaking. I should be good at articulating my points because I put the work in. The point that I'm making here is doing the work is the bulk of the job. Stephen A. Smith became the highest paid person on air at ESPN. I'm pretty sure he is now. What year is it? It's 2020. I remember seeing Stephen A. Smith, his name and his little picture in black and white at the head of columns in the Philadelphia Daily News in the 1990s. Because Stephen A. Smith, for a stint, worked at the Philadelphia Daily News in the 1990s, before the internet. Now, this is over 20 years later, he's the highest paid guy. Understand, he was doing the work for over 20 years. And by the time he got to the Philadelphia Daily News, who knows? I don't even know how many years he had been working before that. And we know all the years he's been working after that. You know how to count, right? Eric Thomas, I already told you. He said he was speaking since 1992. All right, wasn't no YouTube in 1992, but he was doing the work. I just told you, people tell me today, I get off the stage, or someone who's listened to my podcast say, this guy makes good points. He's articulate. I like the way that you write. I like the way that you make your arguments. I had somebody say to me, Dre, I don't always agree with everything you say, but I like the way that you make your points and you back up your arguments and give your reasons for saying what you're saying. And I appreciate it. The reason why I got good at it, 10,000 hours, 10,000 recordings, 7,000 articles, podcasts every single day for over 4 years. I've been doing this every single day. Rick Ross, I just read his book. The rapper Rick Ross. He has a song that he first blew up off of. What was it called? Every Day I'm Hustling. Every single day, these people that I mentioned, and a whole bunch of other people who I didn't mention, they were hustling every day before you knew their name, before they became famous, before they had their name in lights. They were doing the work. Now, yes, are the fruits of the labor great? Absolutely. Does it feel good to have people tell you how good you are, and have people following you and buying from you and wanting to hire you and being able to set your own price? All of those things are amazing, but understand that those things are the amount of time you get to enjoy those things are very small compared to the amount of time you got to put into work in order to get there. Doing the work is the bulk of the job. Eating the fruit is just a small part of it. Now, while the fruit tastes great, the labor is where you're going to spend most of your time. So everyone, you, me, everybody out there, we all happily enjoy the fruits that come off the tree. But very few of us realize that when you decide you want those fruits, for the most part, what you're signing up for is not the fruit. You're signing up for the labor. All right, everybody signs up for the fruit. Okay, so you don't even have to sign up for it. It got to the point where they stopped asking people to sign up for the fruit. All right, we're like, all right, you want to do this, you got to sign up for the labor. Who's in now? All right, not too many hands go up. Point number 3. Today's topic is the fruit or the labor. That is the question. Point number 3 is nobody sells an opportunity with the labor. All right, here's the kicker to all this that we've been talking about so far. Nobody sells an opportunity by telling you about all the labor you'll have to do. Why? Because the labor is boring. All right, the labor implies, if I tell you about all the labor you have to do to get to the point where you could create a brand new piece of content, written, video, and audio every single day, like I do, If I told you the work you would have to do in order to get there, you probably wouldn't sign up for it. But if I told you the results that come from doing that, you probably want to do it. If I told you you have an audience and you'll have fans and you have customers, you can have clients, you can build your own business, you probably say, yeah, that's absolutely what I want. I'm already working on that now, Dre. If I told you all the work you had to do, then you might not be so enthusiastic. Telling people about the labor that they'll have to do to enjoy the fruit, all right, that now I'm implying, or I'm even directly letting you know that effort will be required. All right, you want to do that? Are you signed up for that? Probably not. That won't work. It does not work to sell people on an opportunity by telling them about the work that they'll have to do. Salespeople, and all of us as a salesperson at some level, you know what we sell? We sell the fruit. In marketing, they say, don't sell the steak, sell the sizzle. See, when you go to any of you ever, if you're driving and you see an advertisement for some food place, whether it's a restaurant, fast food, anything like that, what do they show you? They show you a picture of the finished meal. Not the finished meal I eaten, but the meal that's the fully prepared meal right before somebody eats it, right? It looks really good. All right, it's because they want you to come in because they're like, that the steak, the hamburger, that cheeseburger looks good. I want one. All right, that's what they show you, right? Why do they show you that? They're not showing you the cooks in the back making it. They're not showing you the cow getting slaughtered. They're not showing you the potatoes getting cut. They're not showing you the fries sitting in that vat of grease. But all of that's part of the work. And if those things didn't happen, nobody'd be able to eat a meal. But we don't sell the work. We sell the fruits. It's fine to sell the fruits. Okay, I'm not telling you there's anything wrong with that. I sell the fruits. All right, if I'm selling you something, I'm selling you the results that you're going to get from it. I'm selling you the results you're going to get from reading my book, Work on Your Game. I'm not going to tell you about the fact that it might take you 3 weeks or a month to sit down and actually read the damn book. Why? Because that's too boring. All right, it's not exciting. All right, that doesn't sell books. It doesn't sell books for me to tell you that it's going to take you 3 weeks to sit down, of sitting your ass down, turning your phone off, and actually reading the book. But if I tell you the results you'll get from reading the book, you'll probably buy it. That's how it is. But if you're after the fruits, this is what I want you to understand. If you are after the fruits, you better damn well know what labor is required in order to achieve that fruit, to acquire that fruit. So you need to find out from somebody who's been there already. All right, what's the work that I'm going to have to do to get here? All right, that's a question that you need to be mature enough to ask, because I guarantee you it will be demanded of you whether you ask it or not. Whether you ask the question or not, there is work you're going to have to do in order to achieve that outcome. Now, if you think you're just signed up to achieve an outcome, listen, there's no such thing as a free lunch. First rule of economics. All right, I was taught that in economics class that I took one summer. That was the summer after my sophomore year, before my junior year of college. I stayed on campus all summer and I took summer classes. I took an economics class that was 2 hours, like 3 times a week. It was an excruciatingly long class. I only remember one thing from that class, and I just told you. All right, thank you, Penn State, for the education. There is no such thing as a free lunch. I'm not even being sarcastic. All right, that's the only thing I need to know about economics. There's no such thing as a free lunch. You think you're signing up just to get the fruit? Please. Now, don't be stupid. There are too many people out there looking for shortcuts, as we talked about a few episodes ago. People trying to skip steps. There are no shortcuts. I met a guy in 2019 who owned a communications company. It was called something communications, but basically what he did was he was an authorized retailer who owned several AT&T stores. You know, when you go into those phone stores like a Sprint store or a T-Mobile store or AT&T store, some of them are corporate owned, but many of them are franchises. They're owned by an individual person, but they're an authorized retailer of whatever company. And he was an authorized retailer for AT&T. He owned about 30 of them things. And I asked him, I actually did a speaking engagement for his company. And I asked the guy right before I went on stage, I was like, how did you get into what you're doing? Or it might have been after I got off stage. And he told me, he said, well, back in the 90s, I used to sell pagers. You remember pagers, right, Dre? And I said, yes, I do remember pagers. I used to have one, paid like $20 for it, then paid $10 a month. Those of you remember pagers, you remember they would send you a page. The company would send you a page on your phone to let you know that you needed to come into the store and pay your $10 pager bill. That's the way it worked. And if you didn't pay the bill, they would just turn off your service and you have a pager that wasn't working. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. I know I'm not the oldest person here. Now, he told me that he used to have a pager store, and he didn't have a store, but actually he had a kiosk in the mall. You know those little stands like right in the middle of the walkway in the mall? He had a kiosk in the mall where he was selling his pages. It was his company. He said, I used to stand in the mall for 12 hours a day, from the time it opened to the time it closed, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every single day, selling my pagers. And then he said, Dre, when it was holiday season and the mall was open from a little bit earlier to a little bit later, it was open from like 8 in the morning till 12 o'clock at night. I stood in the mall for 16 hours a day. And then I just saved my money and leveled up. And eventually I started this company. And eventually I got to this point. And as I told you, this dude had like 20 AT&T stores because he was doing an event for all his best managers. And it was like 20 people who got best manager awards, each of them running their own stores. That's what he had leveled up to after all of those years. And I want you to notice something. The more successful a person becomes, the simpler the explanation of their success. Let me say that one more time. The more successful a person is, the simpler the explanation of how they achieved their success. Why is that? Why does it become more and more simple the more successful you get? Here's why. Because there's no magic trick to achieving success. See, if you ask someone how they became successful and they have to give you this long, complex, hard to understand and impossible to remember explanation of how they became successful, it's probably because there's not much success there. The more successful a person is, the simpler it is for them to explain it. And the easier it is for you to understand how anybody could have done what they did, or that anybody could do what they've done or are doing. Labor produced fruit. That's all it is. You do the work, you produce a result. Now, does it happen in a straight line like that? No, never. You do the work. Maybe the work doesn't work. Do the work again. Do it again. Even when you find work that does work, you got to keep doing it to keep producing a result, right? To keep eating. You want fruit to keep coming off that tree, you got to keep feeding it. That's the way that it works. It's usually very simple. Let's recap today's topic, which is, are you interested in the labor or the fruit? Anything you're going to dedicate your life or your career to, you better be interested in the labor because that's what you're going to spend most of your time doing. Point number one, you must be in love with the work. Some people have said that you don't have to love the work to do it. You just have to want the results bad enough. I completely disagree. You must enjoy doing the work simply because just doing the work itself is not always going to produce a result. So anybody could grit through a certain amount of work that they hate if they know that it's producing a certain result. But what if you don't know? All right, I spent hours coming up with topics for these master classes, fleshing them out. The fun part is when you hear it and I get reviews and the feedback. But understand, everybody wants to be heard and be seen and have reviews and feedback and audiences and customers and clients and all of that stuff. Everybody wants that. That doesn't separate me from anybody else. What separates me from everybody else is the work that I do in order to produce the results that I produce. The best performers are the best preparers. Point number two, where in your life are you willing to do the work every single day? I told you the story, Stephen A. Smith, Jason Whitlock, Bill Simmons, all guys who started out as columnists, eventually became successful, well-known columnists. They all morphed to the media space now with videos and podcasts and TV shows. But Stephen A. Smith tells the story. I lived in studio apartments, ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, top ramen every single day for all meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner for years while building my resume as a journalist. Now, today, 20 plus years later, he's the highest paid person at ESPN. Eric Thomas. I did a video with him in 2010. I had just heard of him in 2008 like everybody else. He said, Dre, I've been speaking since 1992. This guy put in 17 years of work before he became known. People tell me, Dre, you're a good speaker. You're a good writer. I like the way you make your arguments. I like the way you're articulate and you're polished. That's after I put in 10,000 plus, probably 20,000 hours combined between writing and recording and videoing and fleshing out my content. The point of it is this. Doing the work is the bulk of the job. The fruits are great, but listen, everybody wants the fruits. Most of the time, you're going to be doing the labor, not the fruit. Few people truly realize that they are, for the most part, signing up for the work and not the results. Point number three, nobody sells an opportunity by telling you about all the work you have to do because it's boring and it implies that effort is required. That won't work. All right, what we sell is the fruits. We sell the sizzle, not the steak. But if you're after the fruits, you better damn well know what labor will be required in order for you to achieve those fruits. Find out everything before you jump in, because I guarantee you there'll be a whole lot of labor that they probably don't tell you too much about up front. Why? Because it's going to turn you away. Too many people are looking for shortcuts. There ain't no shortcuts. I met a guy who owned a communications company, several AT&T stores. How'd you do it? I said. He said, I started by selling pagers at a mall kiosk 12 hours a day. Holiday season, 16 hours a day. Then I got a store. Then I got another one, and eventually I got to the point that I'm at now. He's still going. Point of it is this. The more successful a person is, the simpler the explanation of their success. Why? Because there ain't no magic trick to it. Labor produces fruit. Simple as that. Work on your game. Dre all day.
Hey, this is Dre all day. If you enjoy this mental game stuff that I talk about on video every day, then I put together a simple master class that will give you one key tip for developing what I call the bulletproof mindset. All you need to do is go to workonmygame.com/bulletproof. Is the link right here, and it's down below in the video descriptions. Just click on it, take you right to the page. I'm going to give you that video. It's about 20 minutes long, this masterclass I put together. One key tip for developing a bulletproof mindset. And when you get that special masterclass free video, I'm also going to make you a special offer to get the full bulletproof mindset experience. So just go to that link that you see right here, and I'm going to show you how to develop that bulletproof mindset right now. So if you like this video that you just watched, I'm going to show you how to take it to the highest possible level. You ready for that? Let's do it.